coming and chatting with me. And I'm really curious to hear about your interest in doing solo work. So, and so tell me, Michelle, like whatever questions you have, whatever thoughts you have, let's see where we go.
Okay, well, I have a lot of questions and some thoughts. I'm really interested in thinking more about creating my own solo work and performing it in a variety of levels. And I only saw the one show that you've done, and to me, it was kind of a mashup of solo show and stand-up comedy, which I was surprised but am delighted by. And I thought I'd love to pick your brain about how you got started in doing one-person shows, because I know you've done others, right?
Yes.
I see it.
This is my 24th year.
Wow.
Of doing solo work.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
So you are an expert, and so I picked the right person.
The show you saw, yes, stand up and solo, like one-woman show kind of together. I never ever did a full-length show of not characters ever before in my life. So even though it looked to other people like, oh, stand up, she does stand up, I have never done that before. So really my specialty for decades has been channeling it through characters and doing perspective and mostly bringing that together by theme and also almost exclusively being funny. So that's been, and I've done more like stand up in between characters doing monologues kind of thing. So it was a different kind of show. But
so splicing character work with commentary of your own life. Right, in a funny way.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in also perhaps doing characters from history or for an educational bent, as well as doing work that's closer to me as well. So if you could talk about any of those and how you got started doing this work and how, for instance, you get started on particular pieces that you do and who the audiences are and how much you think about the audiences, and then maybe marketing. It's a lot.
Yeah, if you don't mind prompting me again with all of those.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
So how I got started was kind of like necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing. So as an artist in New York City, an actress, and I was getting cast in different things, always as a character role, and I basically thought I was already crafting a lot of characters. I did my very first, I believe it was my first professional original monologue at PS 122, which was based on someone that I met in England. Her name is Gina. She's a friend of mine, and I called her Gina the English lesbian widow, which just sounds hysterical. But it was actually, her very first monologue was about her partner going in for a procedure and dying.
Oh my God.
So that was my very first monologue.
That you wrote yourself.
That I wrote.
And performed.
Right. And what I love about starting somewhere, and I always forget this often, like it's funny, it's like, I think we drift as artists into thinking how it should be, and like always the process is coming back to what do I want? What do I really want to share? Why do I want to share it? But then there's a lot of shoulds, or that's how other people do it, that I know I just drift to. But the beauty of it is doing something like where you throw your hat over the wall because you can't scale the wall, so you just throw your hat over, is when I did that first monologue, then I had already been a monologist, you know? Then I already was in a conversation of being an artist who can do their own work. So then it became, okay, what do I want to tell? And what I wanted to tell for my very first show, so this is how I got started, is I did different stories of growing up in Flatbush, Brooklyn. And so it was all the people from my neighborhood. And so I don't recall all of them, but all the characters right now, but one of them was Sandy, and she's based on a woman that I knew that grew up across the street from me. I mean, I grew up across the street from watching her, Sandy Green, and I called her monologue The Eyes of the Block, because she was always out her window watching the kids. And she tells a story about me flying through a glass window. And she really did, because she was there, she saved me.
Wow.
So that became the first evening, and I rented out. So I'm kind of telling you two things at once. I'm telling you artistically what I was following, and I'm telling you about like producing.
Right.
So what happened is this was 1995. I was calling around to different theaters asking how much it costs to rent it out. And the Samuel Beckett Theater, which is on Theater Row, they had a vacancy. Something fell through. And so they gave it to me for one night. I wish I can remember now if it was like 200, I think it was $200. And so I had access to their grid. I had a friend of mine that I asked to do the lighting. I had my acting teacher's wife directed me. And I did this show.
Like one night.
One night. Take another little piece of my heart.
And
So because I come from the heart of Brooklyn, Flatbush is called the heart.
Oh, okay. So what was your aim? Was it to get exposure, or to do your work, to have your voice heard? What drove you to do that one night?
I think we know who we are deep down and why we're here. And there are different steps that kind of flash through that we know, I have to do that. I just have to do that. And I knew that I had to do that because I'd seen Lily Tomlin, I'd seen Whoopi Goldberg, and when I saw Lily Tomlin for the first time when I was 16 years old, a voice in me said, I do that. And I was like, where is this coming from?
Yeah. Wow.
But it was like, that's me. I'd been acting, telling stories since I was 7. And I think I didn't learn until, there was another artist that influenced me a lot too. I was thinking I hadn't seen her at that point, but I already had. Her name is Denitra Vance, and she was the first African-American woman to ever have one of the main roles on Saturday Night Live.
Oh. And
she did a lot of solo shows. And she was the lead in a play called The Colored Museum by George C. Wolfe, written and directed by George C. Wolfe. And she always said, if you can get people laughing, then they'll listen to what you have to say. So those three artists were kind of going around as influences. I was already acting, I was classically trained. I went to Wesleyan. I did scene study work in New York City as an actor in my early 20s. But there was this other thing going on about I create worlds. And that was what wanted to come through me.
Right.
So that's why I did it.
Well, that's a cool answer. I've heard other people say, not necessarily about theater, but about, their spiritual growth. They hear this voice saying, do this, or think this. So it's really interesting. I've been reading a lot about that lately, and to hear you say that. And so you have other questions too. I want to make sure I answer them. And I also am really curious what is calling to you. You said something, personal, and that you want it, like you're feeling like this solo show thing. Definitely.
Because I know you're a teacher, a professor, you're a great actress.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Totally transformed when we had that gig. You were like a whole other thing.
That was fun.
It was fun.
so. I'm not exactly a neophyte because I did. I was called to do a solo show for the Solo Fest here in Philadelphia a couple years ago. And it was very personal. It was about me growing up. I think it was called the Dirty Word Club. It was about embracing your own inner weirdness and outer weirdness as well. And it was really great. And I would like to keep working towards that, but not necessarily so personal. I feel like I had to just get that out. So there's that, and there's and part of my mandate for that project was to work on many different characters and inhabit them. And I succeeded in that, and I'd like to continue doing that, and maybe take it on a more global level. And also, so there's that piece, and then there's working on historical characters of women. So I had this idea in my head, was never able to find the hook of women in history that no one knows about. Important women that no one knows about. And so if you've done so many of these things, and first of all, is it viable? Have you been able to make any money doing these things, and let alone feeling creative? And then what's your future look like? So you could talk about that first.
Okay, let me just respond to, I love your idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a song once called Ladies You Should Know, Ladies We Should Know, Ladies We Should Know, oh, Ladies We Should Know, Ladies We Should Know, Ladies We Should Know. That was the chorus the audience had to sing, and then I sang.
Oh, that's neat. That's a neat idea.
And I, for history.
Who were some of the ladies?
I did everyone from Hedy Lamarr and to Dolly Parton to, different first ladies, and
Mm-hmm. And did you
tour
that, or who was your audience?
So here's been how I've made my way, and it has changed, and I've definitely been in a transition since I had my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So she's 12.
Mm-hmm.
Before I had her, my livelihood has been so I was a hands-on healer. And while being an actor, and I always said that was to support my habit of being a performer. And then in '97, I got my training as a life coach. So then I was a hands-on healer, life coach, and actress and writer. And then around 2002, I gave up hands-on healing, and it's just been coaching and performing and writing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a process of being self-employed forever.
Right.
And actually, it feels a little funny to say this in my husband's office. Most people think that, he supported me. And the truth is we support each other. And there have been times that I've made this possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I believe it.
I'm a hustler.
I totally believe it.
And as whether it's coaching a group of people or someone individually, or it's working at the Kimmel Center, writing original material for high schoolers from the entire region, or it's doing voiceovers, or it's doing a whole show at Fringe, producing, this is what I was going to tell you, all those things, I've always been financially self-supporting. And to do that while also being a mother, I think to be the kind of mother that I imagine you are, and I am, because we don't hardly know each other, but it requires, I like being available.
Right.
So my office hours are day, and then 3 to 5 or 6, I'm not available, but mostly, maybe every once in a while. But I like being with her, and then I go back to work again, kind of thing, whether it's a gig or it's coaching again or something. So, but to answer, is it viable? I used a model, so this is before having a child, where I would craft something, launch it at Fringe, get reviewed, because at that time, City Paper reviewed everything.
Right.
So you get some kind of quote, some kind of a blurb from publication.
Right.
Then I'd have a marketing materials, and I would send it to colleges, and then I would perform in a variety of colleges, theater festivals throughout the country.
Wow.
So in that era, I would have urged you to do that. In the era we're in now, and I'm learning this myself, I really think the audience is just out there. It's just out there online. And we don't know where they are.
Right.
It's almost like you've two choices. One is you find the theaters, you have money to rent theaters, you do marketing at all of them, you sell tickets at all of them, right? So self-producing.
Right.
Or you, and this is becoming a lot more popular. I said there's two ways, but there's so many more than two as I'm talking. There's living room theater.
Right.
Because
I love that idea.
people are doing that so much more. And if what we use, and I'm moving that way again. It's like I started doing a lot of things at Underground at Ron's in Chestnut Hill. I would come out and I'd MC the whole night. And now I'm kind of like moving back to coming into people's living rooms,
Really?
especially with my show, Vicissitudes of Travel, because it can be done anywhere. And we all go on a journey through brain surgery, and we get bonded as a group, and then we can talk about our lives together. So it's very
I love
intimate.
That. Yeah.
But to get back to this second idea, so if what you do is you create what you create, and then you have snippets on camera of it, like if you did a run here where you can put out the word, bring people there, sell tickets, cover, getting paid for that night, plus covering the expenses of the space and getting filmed, then you have a thing to put out to say, hey, I'll come to your living room, and all you have to do is get 20 people together, and for Women's History Month you could book yourself for 20 nights of the month.
So you're doing living room theater now?
Yes.
Wow. How many different shows, and whose living rooms?
So I've done so far, I've done like Joey Perillo's acting class. I've done a living room of somebody in New Jersey. I've done in New York City, in Chelsea, I've done a gallery. Doesn't count exactly as I did a living room in Mount Airy. This is a woman who only did music. But I was thinking about, like, it really needs to be theater too. Like that, like I know this is a trend right now. Like we're all needing each other so much more, and theaters cost so much. And can you always get people out? And what do you need anyway? You need the network of someone to pull their people together. So if you just plug into networks, then that's it. And so I found this woman. I read this article in the Chestnut Hill Local, and I contacted her. And she said, we've never done anything but music. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, so, but I think, she said, I love theater. And Nicholas Nickleby was my favorite thing I've ever seen. And I want to see you do this. So she threw her doors open, and she had 30-something of her friends show up. And there was very little space for me to navigate in this performance space, like even less than any other space. But at the end, she's like, thank you so much for contacting me. And I don't know about you, I always feel like I'm bothering people when I'm like, come to my show, even though I've done this for, like I told you, 25 years.
Right, yeah.
But what always comes out of it is people are like, thank you so much, because we didn't envision our music series as a theater series.
That's wonderful.
Or we didn't know about this woman in history, and oh my God, you have to write a show about my aunt. Like, all these people are probably going to come to you and be like, actually, I have someone for you to write about, you know? And then you have a whole dialogue with your audience, who's not just your audience,
Right.
but they're really your partners, your collaborative partners. And I think there's a dearth of creativity and centers of creativity in our culture right now. There aren't enough public spaces, there aren't enough converging spaces. So if we bring art to places where people are, I think it's also a great service, because it makes people more creative, and then they also feel more connected, and then they have community.
love
all
that.
the things we talk about in
love
theater,
that. Yeah.
you know, but then it's removed in like institutions or a theater.
Right.
But when you go where people are, we're actually doing the mission of theater, and we actually can financially support ourselves if what we're doing is we're self-producing to some degree. And basically what I'm saying is I'm self-producing on a shoestring, and it's way more profitable than, you know, like some theater requires tech,
Right.
but what you're talking about doesn't.
Right. And so, I mean, this may be a delicate question. But so this woman, say for instance in Chestnut Hill, so she had 35 friends come, and they paid her a certain amount, and
So
then
she's
she
a very special
paid
person.
You. Okay.
And I love you. This is so great. I love your mind. You're like, specifics, please. So she charged $20. She took nothing.
Oh my God. Wow.
In New Jersey, they wanted to charge $15. They asked people to bring something as a potluck, and they took nothing. In New York City, I gave it as a gift. And I really like some of those folks, and this is when I'm in my own transition, is I would like people to partner with me, because the mission of that show, the brain surgery show, it's both about health, brain issues. It's about counseling, and actually I'm gonna go after individual donors, which I've never done, and hospitals, and get other more like producing partners that want to fund me just bringing the work without people having to pay, without people necessarily having to pay a ticket price.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
But anyway, whatever, getting back to something I said way early on, whatever you want, whatever is speaking to you about how you would like it to be, I would start there and work backwards. There's a really good book called Wishcraft, and that's what she basically says. And I used it to create my very first show.
Oh, wow.
Even do the creative process. So I had an idea about the characters, I had an idea I wanted to do the show, and so I had like two eventual bubbles, and I worked my way backwards in order to have like a draft. I'd want it by this time, I'd want to be in the rehearsal schedule there, but even before having the draft, who are the characters I really want to hone in on in my neighborhood. There's a Vietnam vet who did so many drugs and landed on his head off the top of a building once, but he was always in my neighborhood, and so
he was a character.
Yeah. So I highly recommend that book.
Okay, that's great.
To work backwards, because you know what you want. I mean, if we keep listening, we actually know.
Right. That's great.
I don't think I've answered any of your series of 4 questions in sequence, so
it's okay. Now I have another question about collaborating, working. So I know for the show I saw, you thanked a couple different people who helped you with certain aspects of it.
Yes.
Do you usually work that way? Do you always have somebody look at your work, an outside eye, or do you ever do it without that and launch yourself that way?
I have. For a long time with Fringe, I did my stuff pretty much just myself. I went through a period where I worked with my dad, who is a writer and as a girl, I still wanted his approval, and then being a hands-on healer like broke his heart because I was a math and science kid, and I could have been a lawyer or a doctor. I went to like a really good school in New York City for high school, and it was really hard for him that I was an artist, which is really what he is. Like, he was a teacher, but deep down artist, and now again a writer. Now that he's in his 80s, he's been retired for a while, but writing. And so we collaborated for a while, which was also very healing.
That's really neat.
So he would give me feedback. He had one of the best lines about oral sex in one of my shows. It was so funny. And so I think it became, like, it shifted things in our relationship, and it was also really great to have him. So Vashti, who I was talking about before, we went to college together, and we'd always, after class, talk to one another and say, like, we'd be in feminist theory, and we just wouldn't understand why everyone was so cerebral and they weren't just talking about women's stories. And we'd go back and forth about that. And so we were close at Wesleyan, but we really became best friends when we found each other here in Philly, because neither of us are from here, we're both from Brooklyn, and we both made our way here for different reasons. And then we started collaborating almost immediately. Pretty soon after she and I reconnected as friends, I was pregnant with my daughter, and going through motherhood as an artist, she had done that already twice. Her second child was around 8 or so when my daughter was born. And her first child was a baby when we were at Wesleyan. She single parented at Wesleyan to finish her last year and a half there.
Oh my God.
And so, and I was always like, well, hail Vashti. But it became really, really powerful to be in a dialogue about the work and about our lives. So that was a whole period of my life. Karen Getz, who I think you know, was my co-writer for Vicissitudes of Travel and the director. So
I don't think I knew that. Oh, okay.
That was an ongoing, very long process, because usually when I do a show, I have what I want to say at the beginning. With that show, the show wanted me to listen to it and become what it was going to be. Very, very different process. And really, really useful for me as an artist to grow that way, and really hard. And so I cried on her shoulder a million times, and she's fed me many meals. And so, and then with this last one, there were 3 people that I had on board as creative partners. One was someone in LA who does solo work, writing workshops over Skype. It's a friend of mine from
Did you take that?
Wesleyan. I just private sessions with her, because I just came up with material and I just needed her to listen to it, especially the story about my cat.
So a little consulting.
Right. So I sat there with her and read all my material. She gave feedback. She said what she felt uncomfortable about, what actually landed for her, different things like that. And then I asked Reggie Pindell at University of the Arts for assistance about my vocal work for the sequence where I sang, because I felt insecure about singing. And it's so funny because he and I have taught at the Kimmel together, and we taught musical theater, and one of our students went on to be coming forth on American Idol, and like, he's vocal. And so I was really insecure, and when I worked with him, he was like, yeah, it was good. I was just like, all our stuff, like what we think is not so good, it's like fine. And then the other person, I mean, he had more about delivery than about my vocal quality. And then the other person was my stage manager, who every time we met, even though when I met her, she was a student at Temple, and Vashti and I worked with her on previous shows of mine, and she supported us in different ways, stage managing over the years. In working with her this last time, I actually was shocked by that I needed her in a way artistically. We had a whole other meeting, and she impacted the work as a 20-something in living in the United States differently than a late 40s something.
Right.
And we had some really fascinating, she really impacted why I was doing the show, how I was doing the show, even though she started as stage manager. So I really, that's examples of who I partner with, why I get feedback, how I get feedback.
So it all depends on the work and the people. and letting it happen organically. And yeah,
Right.
That's great.
Right.
That's great. I guess what's next? So how many pieces do you have in the pipeline, like at this point?
At this very moment, I only have 2 that I'm doing. Well, I guess maybe 3. I have a night of character work that I did last May that I just pulled together from a variety of pieces over the years. That's sort of a general go-to that I pulled it together in a couple weeks, and then I did it at a place called the Living Room in Ardmore, which again is a music venue. But that woman, like her name, Laura Wood, didn't Brian comment, she would be happy to host you. For instance, so there's a lot of like these living room
That's neat.
things out there. And then I have Ridiculous, the show that I did that you saw. I'm doing a version of that plus that living room one, versions of each of them, putting them together, and doing a fundraiser for Turn Pennsylvania Blue this month.
Oh wow!
So it's like that's what that sort of comedy side is. Then I have Vicissitudes of Travel, which is my brain surgery show. And come the end of the month, I'm going to sit down and create something else because I feel something else coming through. I'm not sure if it'll be a solo show. I'm also interested in film. I'm interested in writing for actors that I think are amazing because I've worked with the youth of Philadelphia that are now, you know, the kids that I started working with when they were 14, they're in their 20s now. I actually have some ideas of things I'd like to do with them, but I'm not sure if that'll be like 1 or 2 of them or a bunch of them. And then there's also my daughter, who she and I create material, so I'm thinking of doing some things on camera with her. So those are the directions I'm going in.
So when you say on camera, that makes me, and I thought you were going to allude to this earlier, it makes me think of doing work online.
Right.
Do you ever do that? YouTube or Instagram or whatever else?
No, that's what I'm thinking is left to transition to. I have so many people I know all around the world. I don't know if you ever do like Facebook Live. It's just kind of amazing who tunes in.
I kind of stay off of it. But
And
what do you use it for?
Well, like I was about to go on stage at a gig, and I felt insecure and nervous, and I just put the camera on myself and I just did a joke while waiting. So, and I kind of had my community
that's
there.
kind of interesting.
Yeah. So it's something that I don't know, there was one other thing. I have a friend who I've been meaning to ask about, but he does, he'll do live gigs performing music and he just puts out a tip jar.
Right.
I've never done any of that. I feel like that's
What do you mean, like performing like snippets, short pieces, and have a tip jar? What do you mean?
He'll perform a whole set and he'll just have his tip jar out so you can
Right,
send
that's so musician oriented. That is a very musician-y thing to do.
Right.
So how would you do that with your work?
I was thinking the same thing.
Like in a bar or someplace?
Oh yeah, I think even in our living room. Because if people like it and they're enjoying it, they could send something for it.
Right. So can you walk me through that, how that
Oh,
works? I have a hard time picturing it right now.
Oh, so it could be that you're going to do a run through of a draft, and you just put it out there, and there is a.
Oh, you mean online?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then there's a
I
platform.
see. And there's a tip jar online. Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, I've yet to do that, but that's something I want to start doing this summer.
Oh.
And then there's yet another platform that's escaping me right now.
Patreon?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that would be another way for you to do
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
Again, a lot of these things take a little bit of like commitment to get them going.
Mm-hmm.
And so I haven't done them
Mhm.
because there's often a lot of things that are pressing.
Right.
But I'm thinking definitely start doing things that we share online,
Mm-hmm.
and put a tip jar this summer so that we start getting paid for our process, and that people then also see we're doing stuff. So if they
Right.
wanted us to come, and I say us, I guess I'm thinking of me and my daughter.
Okay.
We once did a show for the Kimmel Center about being a good audience, and it was meant to be for children. But of course, the way we created it, I was the clown, and so my daughter was my assistant, and like, I was doing such a bad job of being a good audience, even though we're both talking about how to be a good audience.
Right. Right. You were showing.
So
how,
she was the straight man.
Right.
Although she had a baby, and when it started crying, she threw it into the audience. So it's, she was 9 at the time, but yeah.
That's great. That's really funny. But that's really important though to teach young people how to be a good audience, because I find that I have to share that knowledge too with any students that I take to the theater, because they just don't know in general.
Yeah. It's not TV.
No, it's not.
So did we address everything? Is there something else?
I think so.
Oh, I know what I was going to say to you. So, in talking about the collaborators, and also talking about creating material. So, in order to, you didn't exactly ask this, but I'm answering it.
Yes.
That in order to create the material, I find that I need to commit to time spent on it and like designate times in my schedule where I'm working on it, and that became it was always important, but it became even more important in mothering to do that. So I also recommend that.
Yeah, I remember when I was writing my first piece. I remember it was over Memorial Day weekend, and I said to my husband and daughter, "Okay, I'm going to go downstairs and write all weekend." He said, "Okay." So I did. And I didn't know if I'd be able to bang it out, but I got the first draft,
Wow.
Yeah. So you're right.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. But for that one it was kind of a commission, because I was commissioned to do it with by a director. So here's the thing, is commissioning yourself, getting yourself started.
Right.
I know I have a lot of things that I want to say and can say, and interesting characters. Is just like, I guess, lassoing the most prevalent or the most relevant ones at this time.
Right.
It's just like listening to that inner voice.
Yep.
And allowing it to happen, and believing that you can do it, and doing it, and just doing it, and showing up. That's what I tell my students all the time, is show up.
Yes.
Show up and you'll get the A,
Yes.
Don't show up and then you can't get an A.
Right.
So yeah.
I'm pulling my punch around saying a quote by Woody Allen, because in this era I have mixed feelings about him.
Oh, right.
But he had this great quote, which is 90% of success is just showing up.
Exactly.
So here we are, and we got to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And I like this last thing you said about commissioning yourself. And I think that we finally have a title for what this talk was. Because and really this is the thing I know about being a creative, is it's that following the impulse from inside us is where our aliveness is. It's what's worth everything.
Right.
And like it can then look like, oh, this happened, that happened, but it really starts from honoring that impulse and then valuing it. And then there's one tool I give in coaching that I find really powerful, which is to make the sound when we get stuck, because we will try to figure out the answers to everything. And like, you hearing some of my experience is going to spark things for you, but like we're both going to go like, yeah, but I don't know about this, I don't know about that. And it can be a way to stop ourselves. But if we go, I wonder about the self-commissioning thing. Like, how big do I want to take this self-commissioning thing? Do I want to have producing partners? Do I want to have creative partners? Do I want to have a writing group? Or do I want to just have a couple of readers? What do I want? How do I want it to look? How do I want it to feel? How much do I want to get paid?
Those are all good questions.
Right. And that when we about it, this is so funny, because just the other day, I was like, I came up with such a, I come up with topics and I put them on my phone under the notes. And it was one of those good ones. And I was like, oh, that's good. And I was like, I'll write that down. But I'm like in the middle of cooking. I was in the middle of something. And I was like, I couldn't write it down. I'm like, I'll remember. Oh, I hate that.
I know.
Oh, of course I did not remember.
Yeah.
And so I was really mad about it. Because I was like, oh, it was such a good thing. It was such a good like shtick. What was that? What was the topic? And so I hummed about it for a few days. And it came to me today what it was.
Wow.
And the way I experience is it's very similar to the process of waking up from a dream.
Yeah.
Where it's like right there, but if you push too hard, you won't access it. Or when we're trying to remember, who was that actor in that movie, in that scene? Who wrote that? Who said that? And we cannot remember. And we go, oh, who was that? Who was that? Who was that? And we finally let it go.
Right.
And then it comes back to us.
Yep.
And I find those come back to us moments are where so much of the magic of our creativity is. So that's why I love So I also want to just close with commissioning yourself is really the tool that can keep us going is the
I love it. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.